Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. It's great to be here again. I want to say congratulations to Carol Hallett. This is her creation, and it gets bigger and better every year. Speaking of bigger and better, 2023 has been a strong year for U.S. airlines. Passenger volumes are setting records, and Americans are still relying on our cargo carriers every day. The packages that arrive at my front porch on any given day are a testament to that. This is why U.S. airlines have been hiring aggressively. Today, we employ more than 800,000 workers, the most ever, and wages have gone up significantly. It's a great story to tell, and there's much more to it. While I love to brag about what our industry has done to move 2.5 million passengers and 58,000 tons of cargo every day, I'm going to save my good news speech for another time. The reason is that I believe that our system, our airspace system, is at an inflection point. The NASA is one of our nation's most valuable pieces of infrastructure, but it is suffering. ATC staffing shortages, next-gen modernization delays, and close calls on the runway and in the air. The former problems have festered for years and are coming undeniably to a head now. We cannot afford to let them fester further. Very simply, what is happening in the system cannot be sustained if we want to continue to be the global leader in aviation and have our industry be the economic engine that it is. All of us, industry and government, must act with an urgency that is both focused and practical. I want to state explicitly that recognizing problems is not finger-pointing. This is a call to action to do what we believe is absolutely necessary. As many of you know, I've been in the city a really long time now, and I've seen a range of crises firsthand, from 9/11 at the White House to the pandemic. We know when a crisis happens, we spring to action. We remove our brand hats or political stripes and come together with a sense of urgency and just get the job done, do what we have to. That's what we're proposing here. We don't want to wait for a crisis to happen. We can't afford to wait till something breaks, so we all need to lead by acting now, and that's critical. I want to talk briefly about the issues I just mentioned. Let's look first at ATC staffing. Carriers have voluntarily reduced schedules to accommodate air traffic control staffing shortages. This is a quick fix that we have worked out in conjunction on a daily basis with the FAA, but frankly, some days better than others. But it's not how we should be operating now or how we can continue to operate in the future. We should not be shrinking our system when passenger and cargo volumes are soaring. It doesn't make sense from a consumer point of view or an economy point of view. It's imperative that our carriers can schedule flights to meet demand, and it is imperative for consumers, our workers, and our economy that we do something about it. We all know that ATC staffing challenges are particularly acute in the New York airspace. We appreciate that the FAA granted us a slot waiver extension through the end of October. But with no relief in sight, we are now asking the FAA to extend that relief through the end of next summer, so our carriers who are planning for next summer now can do what they have to appropriately schedule flights, crews, and ground support so that we can meet our end of the obligation, which we need to do. Certainty in this regard is a must, so we're hopeful that the FAA will act soon. It's not just New York that's short-staffed, though. It's LAX, the Southern California TRACON, Miami, the Dallas TRACON. Secretary Buttigieg has said that we are 3,000 controllers short. 3,000. Here are some thoughts on how to address those shortages, because I can't stand when people just complain and don't have any ideas. First, transparency about the progress in hiring air traffic controllers would be helpful to everyone. We have requested that data be shared publicly. Also, we need new hiring streams for air traffic controllers. It's worth noting that hundreds of successful air traffic controllers including the last two presidents of NACA themselves, got their training through alternate institutions here in the United States. Places like Vaughn College, Embry-Riddle, the University of North Dakota, Hampton University, the Mark School. We need these programs back online as they were before 2014 to pump up the numbers of air traffic controllers. While the FAA has authority to hire up to 1,800 new controllers a year, that's not going to be enough. First, there's the washout rate, the number of people who go into the pipeline but don't make it out successfully. And then, of course, there's attrition, controllers who are retiring. Even if you put 1,800 in or 1,500 in, as we did this year, in combination with attrition, this is not sustainable. It'll take 5 to 7 years to break even if all goes well. Do we need 5 to 7 years of further disruption on a daily basis? I don't think so. Canada is also dealing with a staffing shortage. They're turning to a third-party vendor to augment their training capabilities. Again, think of those places like Vaughn College that used to help train controllers successfully. Canada has 8 regional training centers across the country. We have 1, Oklahoma City. They're also flexible with locations for placement based on seniority and preference. These types of actions would help us get to where we need to go a lot faster than we're going to make it now. It seems like they'd be relatively simple to undertake. Next gen, so cue the movie Groundhog Day. We've been talking about this for years and years, and it seems like we're in the movie. The NOTAM outage at the beginning of this year highlighted how desperately the FAA is in need of technology upgrades and system modernization. Last year when I was here, I held up paper strips. Some of you chuckled because we still rely on those paper strips in this digitized world. But here's something that's no laughing matter. If the U.S. is to remain the global standard of aviation safety, we all have to act, again, with a focused sense of urgency. And yes, I am belaboring the point. We must modernize the system. We've been saying that for too long. We need a multi-year F&E budget or funding, technology funding, to provide long-term stability for needed capital projects. The House and Senate appropriators have done their job. We appreciate that they robustly funded that F&E budget this year. They've also provided funding in the past. They also did their job in 1996 in the reauthorization bill when they gave the FAA flexibility in the acquisition system procurement. But too often the FAA has had to raid the F&E budget to address shorter-term issues. Close calls. We were all concerned a few weeks ago when the New York Times published a very long story highlighting the incidents that were, quote, part of an alarming pattern of safety lapses. Safety is never taken for granted in our industry. The FAA Safety Summit back in March was a call to arms for a much-needed self-examination of where we are post-pandemic. But that was 6 months ago. I don't think we need another report to tell us that better technology and training are non-negotiable in a complex system like ours. What we do need is leadership, permanent, stable leadership. The good news is that the White House has sent a nomination for FAA Administrator to the Senate. It took a while, a little bit too much of a while. We know that it is the Senate's prerogative to carefully vet and consider Mike Whitaker's nomination. That said, Mike is known to many of the people in this room. He has a deep understanding and appreciation for the collaboration that's required between the government and the private sector to keep our airspace both safe and efficient. Look at reauthorization then. Anyway, we urge the Senate to act swiftly and give meaningful consideration to his nomination. Finally, reauthorization. At the other end of Pennsylvania, I'm tempted to use my hands to point which way, but I can't remember where I'm standing, which way it is. So we need to go this way or that way to the other end. Anyway, I know you just heard from Garrett Graves. We want to thank Garrett and Chairman Sam Graves and Ranking Member Rick Larsen for their leadership and commitment to a bipartisan work product that puts safety first and passed the House with an incredibly overwhelming majority. We're grateful for the workforce development provisions in that bill and requiring the FAA to handle the maximum number of controllers. We are also pleased that the bill contains language that defines what is and what is not a delay controllable by carriers. We need the Senate to move quickly and effectively to advance a reauthorization bill. Finally, there's a list of other topics I could talk about, like the misguided anti-consumer Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. But it was important, I think, to spend my time today trying to convey the gravity of the current situation and remind all of us what's at stake and provide a call to action for all of us to work together, find some mechanism to work together to examine these problems and get them solved as quickly as possible. Thank you.